Okay, in this exercise we're going to look at non-destructive editing in Photoshop. We're going to look at primarily how we use layer masks to achieve that. The assignment we're looking at is CAD 230 and CAD 234, assignment 3. This is your assignment. You'll be making a montage of the several Photoshop techniques, including selections, layer masks, levels, transform tools, cloning, burning, dodging, and gradient masks. So the first thing that we want to do is set up a new file, 8.5 by 11 with a resolution of 72 pixels per inch, and make sure that it has a color mode of RGB 8 bits. So what we're looking at doing is creating something like this. This would be our montage. This is made up of several images. We have the castle, we have the mountains, we have Great Wall of China here, a bridge, a train depot, a bell here, a Kodak picture spot, backpack, guy on camera, sign that you're going to edit and put in some verbiage in there. And also you can see here's the actual image on this signpost here. If we look down a little bit further on the assignment sheet, you can see here, if I zoom out to page width here, I don't know why that's not zooming to, oh, it is at page width. Hold on, full page. Here we go. So these are all the images that were used to make up this particular image here. You can see here's the castle. If you look here, you can see the castle is actually a different color, gray. I did that so that it would kind of blend in with the mountains here. You can see here's the mountains. We only used this portion of the mountains, and you can see that the mountains are mirror imaged up here to fit in. Further down here you can see we used this Kodak picture spot, the backpack, here's this guy, this bridge right here. We didn't use the castle part, but we used the bridge. That's this part right here. We used the bell. Here's the Great Wall of China. Here's the road that we used to come in here. You can see here's that road right here. And the train depot and the sign. This is what the layer lists end up looking like. In this list you can see we have started out with the castle itself. We put a mask on the castle. These over here on the right hand side are our masks. They'll make more sense to you as we get going along here. So let's get started, and first things first, we'll come into Photoshop and start our page setup. So I'm going to come up to File, we're going to say New, and in New we're going to pick the preset here. It says Custom. So in here we're going to say Custom US Paper and 8.5 by 11. Okay, although I want the width and the height different. I want this wider than taller, so I want it to be landscape instead of portrait. So I'm going to put in 11 by 8.5. At a resolution of 72 pixels per inch. RGB color 8-bit. Background, we can set it to be transparent, and that should be okay. So I'll hit OK, and this is what we're set up with. The next thing I'm going to do is go out and find an image. So we'll come out to Bridge, and we're going to go into our castles in here. And I'm going to pick a castle, let's see, from this list here. Let's see if I can't find the castle that we're using. If I look down this list, we should be able to find it. Here someplace, let's see. There it is. Very last one, of course. So we'll go ahead and open this. First thing I'm going to do is drag and drop this into my image. And the way that I like to work with masks is I like to mask them after the fact. So I like to mask them once they're in my final image. I'm not going to mask it here. I'm just going to drag and drop it into here and drag it into here. Okay, like this. And you can see it's a really large image, so we're going to size this down a little bit, holding down shift and making sure it's in there right. So in our example in Word here, let's see, we'll go into Word and we can see in here, that the castle isn't, as big as it came in. So I want it to be, about the same size. So I'm going to put it up here like this. And from there, we're going to change the color of this. So non-destructively and destructively, I'm going to show you both methods here. So we're going to come up to Image. After we accept the transform, we have to accept that transform that we just sized that. So once we come up here to Image, this is a adjustment that would be a permanent adjustment. You can't go back to this once you've done it. So if we come up to, let's see, we'll do hue and saturation in here. And basically I can desaturate this image and you can see what happens when I do so. Okay, it will convert all of this imagery into a grayish kind of color, and that's basically what I wanted on here. And we can have it set up so that it targets the castle only and not the sky, and vice versa. But if we do the hue and saturation adjustment here, we can't come back to this later. Once I hit OK, like that, this change has happened and I can't do anything to go back in there. If I went back up to Image and Adjustments again and back to hue and saturation, notice that it's back to here. And if I readjust this saturation forward or backward, you can see it'll change it, but it won't bring it back to its original state. You can see how all this gets pixelated, and it's not going to be something that you want to use. So we'll undo that and show you how to do this non-destructively. So we'll come back up here, and in our Layers dialog box, let me tear this off for a second. We'll come up here and pick this button right here in the middle of the bottom of our tools for our Layers palette, and we'll come down and pick hue and saturation again. And this time when I do that, notice over here under properties I can do the same thing, so I can adjust that saturation down, and at any given time I can turn that on or off. I can also double click on this icon right here to come back to the properties here, and you can see I can take that back out and there's no pixelization or anything like that. So so that's how we adjust the color on that. I'm going to just erase that for a second and show you how we will mask this out first and get rid of the sky. In our image in Word here, you can see here I was using the same sky, so you don't necessarily have to get rid of the sky, but notice that the flag is in color. The rest of this isn't. So we could use this sky if we want to, or we could, put in another sky altogether, which is what I'm going to do here. So destructively, what I've showed you in the past here is to basically go in here and select this area and then delete it. Well, we start out with the same exact method here. So we come up here and decide whether or not we're using the magic wand or quick selection. These are the go-to for this one. Using the polygonal lasso tool around this isn't going to be so fun. I mean, there's a lot of jaggedy parts and there's some curves on here, so it'd be very difficult to do that with that. So we're going to use the quick selection tool. I'm going to use Add, and I'm going to make my cursor a little bit smaller by using the left bracket key, and I'll come up here and start selecting this. Okay. Now the good thing about masking, what ends up happening is there's several different ways to add masking into your selections. So you can see here we've done a fairly good selection here. We're missing this turret here and this turret here. You know, I could go in and subtract those out, you know, making my cursor a little bit smaller. See how small my cursor is right here up by this turret. I can kind of come down there and click on that. I can click on that one there, and then I can go back into add and add this stuff back in over here with these trees. Okay, I want to get rid of all this stuff down here and all this stuff, including the trees over here. I want to add back in the flag. Right now that flag isn't selected. Okay, so right now we're pretty good. So at this point, if I want to make this into a mask, oops, I've got a little turret there too, so let's subtract that one out. Didn't see that one. Okay. And notice I'm not worrying about the crosses right now up on top of those. Okay, I'm going to get those in a little bit. So once you have your initial selection done, to create a mask for this layer, and basically what a mask does is it will hide what you have selected and reveal the other parts. So this button right here on our toolbar, okay, in the layers palette is add a layer mask. So with this selection done, I can click add a layer mask, and whoops, what happened here? We have the sky is here, and it's just opposite from what I thought. Okay, so let's back up a second and kind of look at this. So what's selected right now is actually just the sky. So if you look at the selection here, it's going around the castle, but it's also going around the frame outside here. So this is actually selected and this isn't. So it's an easy fix. All we have to do is come up to select and inverse, and that will inverse our selection. So notice this time how the marching ants are looking. It's selecting all this area down here, all this transparent area, and our castle now. So when I come up here and select add a layer mask, we get something that looks like that instead. Okay. Excuse me. So on our layer mask here, notice how our layer mask is set up. We have black and white. Okay. And we like to use a little saying by saying black conceals and white reveals. And if you look at this, you can see how black is hiding the sky and white is revealing the castle. So our mask is set up correctly here. There are times when you can have this inversed as well, but for the most part we use that saying black conceals and white reveals. All right. So at this point here, if we look at this selection up close, okay, we can see that everything got kind of pixelated on us. Okay, so that's because we made our image fairly small. Okay, so what I'd like to do here is pause for a second. Okay, so now we're going to work on this mask a little bit. The nice thing about masks is the ability to actually paint on the mask. If you look at the mask and the layers up here, first off, I'm going to make my layer thumbnails a little bit larger so that we can see them a little bit better. To make our thumbnails bigger, we're going to come up to this drop down up here, and we're going to come down to panel options right here. And under panel options, we're going to just make our thumbnails bigger. And we're going to click this largest one and hit OK. So that'll give us a nice large thumbnail to kind of look at here, and we can expand this out a little bit. All right, so that looks a little bit better. So as we've said here, black conceals and white reveals. So if you're going to work on the image, you need to be on this thumbnail, and you can see how this thumbnail is highlighted in white. If you're working on the mask, you need to target the mask. So when you click on the mask, you can see how this is highlighted in white. So if I want to see the mask on my screen at full size, one thing I can do is hold down the Alt or Option command and click on this thumbnail, and it'll show me the mask right on my screen like that. So here you can see everything in black is concealing, Everything in white is revealing. So you can see there's some areas in here that need to be cleaned up. You get the flagpole that needs there, and those spires that are on all of the turrets. So I'm going to hold down Alt or Option again and click on that and bring this back up. So I'm going to zoom up to this a little bit, and we're going to work on this at this zoomed up level like this. Problem that we're seeing right now is you can see that the pixel grid is on my screen, and it kind of gets interrupted with the transparent background too. It's doing some really funky looking things, and it's kind of hard to work on with that grid on there. So I'm going to turn that off by coming up to View and down here to Show, and I'm going to click on Pixel Grid right here and just take those off so that way I can kind of see what I'm doing. So then we're going to click back on this mask again. We're going to come over here, make sure that black and white is set up for my colors. If it's not, you can click this button right here. So when I click on that, it'll set back my default colors. And the default colors are black is my background, white is my foreground. I can switch them by clicking this button right here. And the shortcut command for this is X, and you're going to use that a lot. So X on your keyboard, all by itself. You don't have to hit anything else, just X. So what we're going to do is paint either with black or white. So if we're painting with black, we're going to be concealing things. If we're painting with white, we're going to be revealing things. So let me move that out of the way for a second. We'll come over here to our paintbrush, which is right here on our toolbar. So we'll click on that and decide what kind of brush we want. In this case here, for this, I don't really necessarily want soft edges on here. I may want hard edges on my brush, so I'm going to pick a hard brush like that. And you can see my brush on the screen right here. So if I want to reveal things, okay, I'm going to just start painting on my screen like this, and you can see how as I paint on, okay, I'm painting on the sky. I'm getting the sky back in here again. So if I want to switch and conceal things, I'll switch back to black, and I'll come back in here and just paint that blue out and just kind of use my eye to kind of, you know, decide how far in I need to go. And the nice thing about it is if you make a mistake or slip and go something like that, it's very easy to just switch back to white by hitting the X key on your keyboard. So when I hit X, you notice over here, okay, on the toolbar, notice that X switches between the two. So I can go back in here and paint that back in at any given time. So this is non-destructive editing because I'm not really affecting the pixels. All I'm doing is just creating a mask around these turrets we can get a perfect selection. Now you can see this castle is fairly pixelated, and that's okay. I mean, the image itself is low resolution, so it's going to be pixelated. So, you know, we're only using 72 pixels per inch, and I can come in here and, you know, reveal and conceal things all day just by hitting the X key. You know, if I have some fringing on there, I can take that off. I can pan around and get some more of these things. Sometimes, like the turrets on these, I don't really know where they are at. So, you know, you can just go ahead and just paint, you know, a big area like this, and then just go in there with your X key and switch like that, and you can just go in there and take that sort of stuff out. So you can see some of the turrets aren't really going to come out that good, and that's fine on this exercise. So as we pan around here, this one here you may want to put in. So if we go ahead and paint that in, we'll go ahead and put that up like this, and that one up there is like a little cross. So we'll just paint that in like that, kind of go around like that so you can see. Alright, and to see kind of how we're doing, you know, we can kind of pan around here. We can see here we missed a whole area of blue here, so I want to put back that in there. do this sort of thing around this turret. Let's see here, it's really kind of hard to work on the pixel level because it's kind of hard to see what you're doing. But as you practice with this, it'll get more second nature, and you can kind of, get a good idea of what you're selecting. Of course, this is, a selection method that is fairly difficult because of the low resolution on this. So let's zoom out and see how we're doing. Fit screen. So back at this resolution, you can see it's not looking so bad. We get this castle top up here. If we go back to our original image, okay, and open this up. Whoops. Okay. Here's this, and you can see it's at a better resolution here. So some people will prefer to make their mask this way on this screen here. For this exercise, though, we're going to, not do that. So, but I want to show you on this screen here what we can do here. So I'm going to just duplicate this layer for this, and without anything being selected, you can create a mask. So I can create just a mask like this, and remember, white reveals. So right now the whole thing is being revealed, and we have black as our foreground color right now. So I could go in here and actually start painting if I wanted to. I could just come in here with a big paintbrush and just start painting stuff out. And the reason that we're seeing the sky still is because the background layer is still on. So if I turn that off, you can see here we're actually getting rid of all this stuff. So I could go in here and physically paint this stuff out fairly easily, and I don't have to worry about being too accurate. I can come in here and come around this stuff and even take that flag out. But you can see this would be a little bit more time consuming. So it's better to, start out with a selection first and then kind of work backward, if you will. So, so that's the method that I choose to do. So I'll delete the mask by just clicking on the mask and dragging it down here to the trash can and just deleting it. Okay. So let me turn off that background image again, and we'll come up here and use quick selection again, and just kind of drag and make a real quick selection over everything like we did before. Okay, so we'll just come in and get all those trees over there and get all that stuff out of there. Okay, so with all that done, we have a fairly quick selection done. I'm not even going to worry about the turrets this time, and I'll just go ahead and inverse my selection by coming up here to select inverse, and then we'll put our mask on. Okay, so with that mask in there, you can see it took these turrets right off. Again, not a problem. We're going to just zoom right up to it, pan over a little bit, and use our paintbrush again with white. So I'll hit X and just kind of come in here and just paint this turret back in like that. Hit X, make my brush a little bit smaller, left bracket key. Now I'll just come in here and just kind of paint around this. And because this isn't as pixelated, you can see it's a little bit easier. I want to show you guys a trick right now. If I click on this spot right here, I just clicked once with my brush. Okay. If I come down here and hold down Shift and click again, what it'll do is it'll create a straight line from the point that I last picked. So I picked here, then I'll pick here, and by holding down Shift, it's telling Photoshop to paint the straight line from point A to point B. So if I come in here and just kind of hold down Shift and go like this, you can see how it creates a nice straight line. So it's easy to do some quick work like that. So I'll click here again, hold down Shift, and do that, and then I'll just freehand paint around this again, and up here around this spire that's on here. So I got that fairly good, and I'll make my brush a little bit larger and just come in here and get rid of the rest of this stuff. Okay, so it's basically that simple to use masks, and I'll come up here and we'll finish up this. I'll do a couple more for you guys here, and then I'll finish this up. But so in here you can see here we bring in some more detail back on that. You may want to zoom up to that level a little bit closer. And again, using your brush, I'm going to hit X, paint with black. So we'll come in here around this spire, come back down in here. Now when your brush is too big to get down in there, left bracket key, make it much smaller. Remember, you can make your brush as small as 1 pixel, so it's 1 pixel that you can paint. So you can make, fairly good selections doing this like this. So I'll come in there and, finish that up. Make my brush a little bit larger so I'm not working so hard. Click, and then shift click, click, shift click, like that. Come around there and just finish that up. Come around this spire, come up to the top of it, come over to this side, come around and down. Okay, so we'll just continue on like this, around this. So when you want to do really good selections, this is one of the better methods to use. Now I can't tell here if this roof is supposed to look like this or not. I may just turn back on my background for a second to see, what I'm missing. So when I turn the background on, I can see there's a little bit of a rope there or something, and it definitely has some portions of the roof taken out there. So I'm not going to worry about the rope. That really won't show up. So I'll go ahead and just go ahead and hit X and paint back in. And most of the time it's better to paint in a sloppy kind of selection like that and then hit X and then go back and clean it up, because you don't really know exactly how much you have to paint back in. So I like to use that method like that, and I'm going to just square that off. So we'll come up here to the top of this and hit X. We'll paint this in. You can see up here we got a big cross on here. Got this spire up here. So I'll hit X again and come up around this. Okay. Do this sort of thing. It might be important to have that cross in there, might not be, but I'm just really demonstrating how you can do this non-destructively. So make my brush a little bit smaller and come in there and finish up some of this detail on this cross. Of course, the cross is going to have some blue fringing to it. There's really not much we can do about that. What we are going to put a blue sky behind this, so that way it won't look like it's kind of glowing or whatever. So let me pause this for a second and finish the rest of this up. Okay, so we're back here, and you can see I've finished up my mask, and we have a nice selection now. We can see we have the turrets on there, the cross, and we get some really good selections. It looks fairly decent. So at this point, I would make sure that I'm on the actual image itself, and then use the move tool. And we're going to move this into this other image just so we can kind of compare this one here to the other one. So I'm going to click and drag, and notice it's bringing the whole thing, mask and everything, into this other one. So I'll drop it in here. It's a little bit large, so let's zoom out a little bit. And I'll just scale this down by holding down Shift a little bit here. And we'll get it roughly about the same size as the other one. I'm just going to make sure it's close to the same size as the other one so we can kind of look at them side by side. So you can see here, pixelization wise, they really don't look any different. I did one mask in the image by itself and the other one, in this image. it really is kind of like half a dozen one, half a dozen the other, how you want to create your mask. But in any case, you should have a mask on here, and I'm going to get rid of this one because we've done a nicer job on it. So we're going to just take this and just trash it, put it in the trash, the whole layer. And then on this one here, we'll go ahead and move it into position, and we're ready for step 2.